Hare Ganga Mahadev Sri Shankara Parvati Pati Mahadev Sri Shankara.
Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. I am so excited for this episode because it's all about using Vedic astrology to understand your Dharma. So what is Vedic astrology, first of all? So Vedic astrology is the eldest form of astrology that we are familiar with today. It originates from the Vedas. The word Veda means knowledge, and these are some of the eldest recorded texts in our human history, originating from the Indus River Valley region of now known as North India, but at the time it was this entire civilization where yoga was created, Ayurveda was created, meditation, all of these beautiful spiritual sciences that we experience originate from the Indus River Valley region. And part of my Dharma and my mission on this planet is to be a voice for these healing sciences because they have helped me so much in my life. They are part of my ancestry. And also, I believe that there's such a renaissance happening right now where so many of us are taking our yoga practices off of the mat and into real life and realizing that wellness is so much more than green juices or doing enough squats or whatever it is. Those are all great. And it's to really be in touch with your soul and the big reason why you're here. So for me, that journey started with my physical health. My physical health was deteriorating, and then that translated into Ayurveda, which is the science of life, understanding nutrition and self-care, etc. And that led me to going deeper into who am I? What's my purpose? What's my Dharma? So the word Dharma in Sanskrit is essentially your soul's purpose, the big reason why you're here. It's the red thread that connects all things. It's your sacred mission on this planet. And in my book, Discover Your Dharma, I share many, many ways that you can help find your Dharma, from my Dharma blueprint, my Dharma archetypes, the doshas in connection to the Dharma, the 4 pathways to Dharma, the 3 types of Dharma. All of this is available for you in my book, Discover Your Dharma. And I wanted to bring in the conversation an aspect that I don't get to address in the book, but is also a really important one in Vedic wisdom, and that is Vedic astrology. So Vedic astrology is quite different than Western astrology. I write about this in my Yogic Path journal, but I'll let Dr. Suhas speak about it more on this episode, but essentially they're using different systems of astrology. So Vedic astrology is using the sidereal system, which is actually based on where the planets and constellations are currently in the sky. Whereas in Western astrology, it was based off of where they were in the sky at the time that they were creating Western astrology. So the Greek times, about 2,000 or so years ago. So they were measuring where these constellations and planets were in the sky then. However, the Earth has a slight shift in its axis that in Western astrology, they did not account for, they did not know about. And in Vedic astrology, sidereal astrology, they did. So till today, from the time that Western astrology was mapped out in the stars, there's about a 26-degree shift in the Earth's axis, meaning essentially we're kind of all one sign ahead of where they actually are in the sky right now. So for example, if you're going to look up your sun sign and you look it up in Vedic astrology, for most of us, not all of us, because it's 26 degrees, it's not exactly the same, but for most people, it's going to be one sign before. So for example, in Western astrology, I am a Capricorn, my sun sign and my moon sign, but in Vedic astrology, I'm a Sagittarius. My rising sign is Sagittarius in Western astrology, and Vedic astrology, it's Scorpio. So you can look up your dates. There's many, many websites that show you. My Yogic Path journal has the dates as well, and see what your signs are in Vedic astrology versus Western astrology. And for some people, this is a huge aha moment, like it was for me, because I never resonated with being a Capricorn. I never believed in astrology because I was like, Capricorn, boring, organized, like plain structured. That is not me. But then when I learned that I'm actually a Sagittarius, I was like, that is what feels like home. I love to travel. I'm super into philosophy and adventure. I'm very spontaneous, and the Sagittarian energy really represents me. Now, this is not to say that Western astrology can't help you. I think there is still a lot of validity in Western astrology, and different astrologers have their own intuitive way of reading the planets in their own form. So it's so much more than just like your sun sign or what it says, but the best astrologers I know are intuitives as well. So another big difference is there are 13 constellations, and 13 is the number of the goddess. It's the number of the feminine. And in the Gregorian calendar and in Western astrology, they changed that to 12 months of the year instead of 13, 12 constellations instead of 13. The number 13 was seen as unlucky, and that is actually because of the suppression of the feminine. And the story of the Gregorian calendar is pretty interesting. But for example, Julius and Augustus were fighting over whose month is going to be longer, and they couldn't decide. So that's why they both have 31 days in their month. It's completely random. January 1st doesn't mean anything. It's an arbitrary date. The actual New Year, and different cultures have their own, but it would tend to be either an equinox or a solstice or some sort of actual change. Like I grew up with Persian New Year, which is the first day of spring, which is the spring equinox. So a lot of people are awakening to kind of the harm and the damage the Gregorian calendar has done on us, and we're awakening to the sidereal system, which you can view from Vedic astrology. So I really recommend for people who are into astrology to look into it, because it is where the planets are in the sky right now. And for, most people that I know, and they learn about it, whether they switch over to Vedic astrology or it just becomes another system that they're aware of, it's always very helpful. Just like we can do our astrology, we can do our human design, we can do our gene keys. These are all different systems and tools for us to better get to know ourselves. So for me, Vedic astrology is the main form of astrology that I follow and practice, but it is much more challenging because it is much more complicated. It's not as simple. We don't have as much resources and access to it as we do Western astrology. Like 99.9% of these Instagrams, when they're talking about, oh, it's the Gemini full moon or whatever, they're actually talking about Western astrology, which again, can be very helpful. I think what Western astrology is really great at is it's very related to our solar system. It's very focused on our seasons, our harvest, the harvest moon. It's very lunar. Whereas Vedic astrology is very galactic. It's very big picture. It's very constellation focused. So I find Western astrology is really good for your immediate. I find my Western sign shows me how I am more in Western society. Like in Western society, I have more the Capricorn, the drive, the ambition, the desire to create. That's more of me in the Western world. But for me, my true self feels more Sagittarian. So some people have that experience with it as well. And there are incredible astrologers doing both type of work. But as an Ayurvedic practitioner and author, I really want to give voice to more people doing Vedic astrology because it is really forgotten about. And if you are into finding your Dharma and practicing yoga and doing Ayurveda and meditating and the goddesses and shakti energy and kundalini, all of these things are Vedic. So Vedic astrology is the system that goes along with that. So I brought on the best of the best. Like this guy, he's been on the podcast, I think 3 times now. He is incredible. His name is Dr. Suhas Kshirsagar. You can call him Dr. Suhas for short. He's amazing. I feel like he's like my Ayurvedic dad. He's so cool, so kind. He really has, most Ayurvedic institutes, practitioners, et cetera, in the US have been trained by Dr. Suhas at some point. I got to know him through Deepak Chopra. He introduced us, and Deepak also wrote the foreword of Dr. Suhas's book. They've known each other for decades. They were both working with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's the founder of Transcendental Meditation, and Dr. Suhas was very focused in Ayurveda, and Deepak Chopra was very focused in other forms, meditation, primordial sound, etc. So they both really came to the Western world to bring these Vedic practices out there. And that's why I'm forever grateful to them, because because of them, I'm able to even know about this stuff and be able to teach it and pass it along. So I always love to give both of them a voice. And Dr. Suhas may be one that you haven't heard about. So I'm super excited if it's your first time listening to him to bring him on. Now, Dr. Suhas is really the best in the field. He's not only an Ayurvedic doctor, but he's also an incredible Vedic astrologer, which is called Jyotish, Jyotish. Jyotish means science of the stars. So he does incredible medical astrology as well as for marriages. So before I got married, I went over to him and I brought my birth chart and my husband's birth chart. I'm like, what do you think? And he was like, how did you find this guy? I'm like, Bumble. He's like, because you guys have the exact same dates to your Saturn return. And the Saturn return in Vedic astrology is completely different than Western astrology. So my husband is 5 years older than me. So in Western astrology, it's like your Saturn return for everyone is like when you're like 28, 29. Vedic astrology, it could actually be like in your 30s, it could be in your 20s, it could be many different times. But him and I actually have the exact same to the month of our Saturn return, which we're actually in right now. So he's like, how did you find this guy? And he also has an ability to, and he shares with us how he does that, is to see someone's Dharma through their chart. So seeing their gifts, their strengths, their dosha, what it is that they are essentially coming to this earth with to fulfill. So it is a little bit complicated. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit complicated. And I have the video of us doing this as well. So I'm going to put the video on my YouTube channel because in this episode, he pulls up my Vedic astrology chart. And he's kind of like talking about, okay, the first circle represents this, the second represents that, the fourth, the eighth, etc. So it's a little bit confusing to hear it without seeing it. You still totally can, but I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel as well, which is this youtube.com/Sahara Rose, and you'll be able to watch it along. So for the sake of hearing this, I've kind of moved pieces around so it could make a little bit more sense to you who are hearing it. So just know that it is a slightly different in YouTube than it is on audio, but both are totally you're able to understand and follow along. I do recommend, to get the most out of it, pull up your Vedic astrology chart. You can just Google Vedic astrology chart. There are many different websites. Dr. Suhas shares one as well. I'll share some in the show notes as well, because that way you're also able to follow along with what your chart is saying, because he guides us through. If your chart says this here, this is what it means. If it says that there, this is what it means. So this is really like a Vedic astrology masterclass. And I'm so grateful that he was able to give us and offer this generous gift to us, and for it to further guide you on the path of your Dharma. And all of these tools just continue to give us more and more insight and more awareness. And it's amazing to see how it all comes together. Now, again, your Vedic astrology is not going to tell you exactly what to do, but it will tell you overall what your strengths are, what your doshas are. Even the goddess related to it you're all able to see that in Vedic astrology. And then you can do the work to further break it down into, okay, what are my archetypes? What does this look like? How do I take action on it, etc.? So it's a beautiful way to further support you on your journey of living your Dharma. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Suhas to the Highest Self podcast. And before we get started, I have an announcement for you. Are you ready to discover your Dharma, your soul's purpose, the big reason why you are here? Well, if so, then I invite you to pre-order my new book, Discover Your Dharma, a Vedic guide to discovering your purpose. This book has my true story for the very first time of how I began and created this lifestyle where I am being able to be me full time, and the many obstacles and roadblocks I overcame with my family members, with limiting beliefs, doubts, fears, and how I overcame them to really be able to share my gifts with this planet unapologetically. This book has everything you need to know for discovering and also embodying your Dharma, how to take action on it, how to find yourself in the 9 Dharma archetypes, and then create a Dharma blueprint for yourself to put your Dharma into action. I share about everything from what to do if you're confused, if you have a lot of different things you like to do, to what if you aren't sure how to take action, and everything in between. I also have incredible bonuses, including meditations, courses, and gifts available for you when you pre-order the book and submit your receipt at iamsahararose.com/dharma. So if you're interested in diving into the book and learning more, check it out. The link is in the bio. And I also have my Dharma archetype quiz that is now available that will help you understand which of the 9 Dharma archetypes you are, so you can get started in understanding yours. I email you tons of great information from the book so you can begin on your Dharma journey as soon as possible. So head over to iamsahararose.com/dharma. The link is in the show notes, and I'm so excited to share this book with you. Welcome, Dr. Suhas, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, Sahara. It's absolutely a joy and great honor to be here with you.
And the first question I would love to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
Well, what makes me my highest self is to remind myself every day what I'm doing, how am I spending my time, what I'm accomplishing each day, and how comfortable I feel in that role. So it reminds me as an Ayurvedic practitioner, as a doctor, as a counselor, as a teacher, that whether I'm doing my job, whether I'm not doing it as a day job, but does it really give me a lot of joy and satisfaction? Does it make me happy? Does it bring the best out of me? Am I developing some new skill sets? Am I learning something new? Am I working with people who are like yourself, who are brighter and talented than me? Or am I using my time wisely enough that makes difference in someone else's life? And if I satisfy all of this thing, I do feel I'm in my dharma. I feel I'm my highest self. And that highest self is not highest to the degree, but it is something which is growing, becoming fuller and fuller as I become wiser, as I become more compassionate enough to understand what the challenges are, how much I can contribute, how much I can change, and then support and be patient and flexible as much as I can. It may sound a mouthful of answer for your simple question, but I think it's an exercise that I myself try to do every evening before I hit my head to the pillow to see how comfortable I feel with the day. And not just the accomplishment perspective, but how good do I feel about me, myself, my life, and what I do.
Such a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that is exactly it. It is never a completion. It's a constant state of evolvement. It's a constant state of expression and expressing whatever it is that you are at this moment. And I think that what people are realizing at this time is it's not outside of you. It's not like, oh, once I, meditate enough or something, then I become something else. It's about you truly blossoming into who you are and who you've always been and who you've been born as, which is what Ayurveda, Jyotish, et cetera, are all about.
It's a tricky question, Sahara, and I'm impressed the way you asked this. And I remember you asking me this last time also, because we usually identify highest self as me, what I'm doing. I'm not identifying the highest self within me, which is common in everyone. Okay. So when I see that, I have glimpses of that higher self as capital S, that I am able to connect from where the information, the energy, the wisdom, even my life force is flowing through. That is what is the highest self that you're able to connect. And you have moments of gaps and silence that you are able to connect to that moment. Not only in meditation, it could be a simple walk somewhere or a hike somewhere, or even in between a conversation, you suddenly have a lightning glimpse of your own self, that who is listening, who is watching, who is feeling what. And that degree of separation, that buffer that we create, is what creates you immune from what is happening in your outer environment.
So beautifully said. And thank you for stating that. And a topic that I myself and many listeners are very interested in is living your Dharma, living your fullest expression, living your soul assignment, your purpose here on this planet. So with all of your years of studying this topic, can you share with us first of all, what you really believe that Dharma is?
That's a great question. And I think I won't say it is one of the most misunderstood kind of a word, but it is often related with some religious connotation. But frankly, it has nothing to do with any religion, caste, or creed. Dharma simply means your role or what you do in order to sustain your life, right duties, right laws of action, conduct, virtues. It is coming from the root Sanskrit word dri. Dri means to hold, to maintain support. And more importantly, it also means rhythm and dharma. They are used as synonyms in Rig Veda, which is the most ancient body of knowledge that is known to humanity. So dharma is something which rings truth to you, which rings the bell of truth. So it is almost translated as right ways of living, an optimum ways or cosmic law and order that makes you feel that what you're doing is meant with the support of nature. So it becomes effortless with what you're doing. It's like you trying to catch a wave and the wave is lifting you up effortlessly. That's kind of a feeling. So being in dharma is something which means that what you're doing. And again, there are different types of dharmas that the Vedic literature has described. There are actually 4 different types. One is the most important one is called as Vishwa Dharma, which is a cosmic universal dharma which applies to everyone, to all the living species, everything around, because we follow that cycle of nature itself. The second dharma, which is important, is called as Samaj Dharma. Samaj Dharma is social dharma. There's a social conduct, which is really important that makes you a creature of the community and how you do and how you lead out your life. The third aspect of dharma is Manav Dharma. Manav means humanity. And each human being goes through these 4 different stages of dharma. They're called as Chaturvid Purusharthas. And these are the ashramas, that the way we live our life from 0 to 25 years, your role is different. You recently became a householder now, so your role is different, which is from 25 to 50. Then from 50 onwards, it's a Vanaprastha ashram, and 75 onwards, it's a sannyasa ashram. So according to different stages and phases in life, and that is the same with everything. Even the universe goes through those cycles of layers and stages and phases. And the last one, which you beautifully brought up in your book, is called as Swadharma. So Swadharma is more of an individual or a personal dharma, that what you do, what are the baggage of karma that you brought in that got kind of frozen in stone in the astrological chart, the time, the place, the parents that you chose, where you were born. That is the structure, that is the point from where the infinity begins. And then the actions that you will do during this lifetime that will continuously unfold your dharma and the dharmic path of living as such. So I think, again, it's a much complex answer to your question, but the simple way to understand dharma changes. And dharma changes with different stages and phases of your life. Like you are wife to someone, you are a daughter to someone, you could be a friend, you could be a colleague, you can be a mother to someone, you could be a granddaughter to someone. You're the same person, but playing different dharma and different roles in different areas of your life. And identifying that and living to the fullest of that dharma at that moment is also very important.
Thank you so much for sharing that and all of the different phases and integrations of it. How much of our Dharma do you think is related to our past lives?
Quite a bit. I would say quite a bit. You are almost destined to select certain things as the blessings, or maybe even the limitations, okay? And both of them are equally good. Blessings are effortlessly moving you so that you meet the right people at the right time, you uncover your dharma and you be in your elements, and what you're doing is meeting with success easily. Sometimes it takes people for 20, 30, 40 years before they realize who they are and what they want. So it just creates some obstacles in uncovering that. So it is firmly believed that what we bring in is what we bring in, is how you perform based upon the chart, the limitation, the placement of the planets and everything is the choice that you make. So it's the discussion between the free will and the choice that you have. But the free will is your own thing, but the choice that you have made to select your parents, select where you were born and what time you're born is something that unfolds. And it's a very interesting discussion. And I must say, because at some point, we have to pause and ask ourselves a simple question that, are we leading a mindless life heading from point A to point B all day long? Or we are asking that, why are we having certain experiences that we are manifesting in our lives? And what can we do to shift that with our intention, with our attention, with our focus, with our response to a given situation? And those are the choices that we all have. And everything that we try to do from an Ayurvedic, yogic, Vedic, Vedantic perspective is to take people to that gap in between, to that phase where you're not mindlessly following or reacting or overreacting to anything, but changing your response, because changing response also undoes the karma. It changes the karmic thing and it reprograms it differently. So the purpose through our books, through our discussion, through our talks is to have people pause, think, maybe take a different detour or different outlook towards life. And once you do that, I think that is going to change and open up a lot of things in their life.
Thank you so much for explaining that. And I think where a lot of people do get stuck is that path of least resistance versus most resistance, because sometimes what you need to evolve is what you're the most resistant to, because, you've set yourself up in so many ways that maybe you sharing your voice or standing up for yourself, whatever it is, feels very resistant towards you. So you could read a book that says follow the path of least resistance and say, oh, so I should just keep quiet. So how do you know when it should be something that you stand up for and maybe feel very resistant against? And when should you be following the flow of where you feel like you're being pushed towards?
Again, a very good question, because a path of least resistance simply means that what you're trying to do is something which is meeting success and people are supporting it, you're finding opportunities and things like that. Many times when you are in your dharmic path, there's almost a test of your own resiliency. It's almost a test to see how strong your will is. And sometimes it creates almost some obstacles and difficulties. And we have seen that ages together in civilization, that once the person knows that he is on the right path, he is thinking rightly, but there are obstacles that are created. That doesn't mean that he is not on his dharma or in his dharma or on the right track, but those obstacles actually push them and galvanize it even more. Mahatma Gandhi used to say that every time I come back and ask myself whether I'm doing it is right for this freedom struggle, and you see these blockages and obstacles coming its way, and due to that blockages, your resolve becomes stronger. There is a greater following that you create around it so that the cause becomes bigger and more purposeful. And those are the signs that we should be looking. We saw that with Martin Luther King. We saw that with many historical figures who, when they started, it almost felt that there is too much of darkness around that. It's a little candle that they cannot keep it burning properly. But the moment you start doing it and staying with your dharma, there's a greater following, there's a greater resurgence that happens to the next leap itself. So I think it's going back and asking those simple questions for yourself, that being in dharma doesn't mean it has to be very goody-goody or easy or effortless. Sometimes you have to put your effort, sometimes you have to put your labor to probably exercise your skill sets, or even polish them to make it capable for you to achieve that. And there's a time when the elements of nature will train you and prepare you before the fruition happens. And it's exactly the same process. So even though you are embedded in your dharma, you have to go through that birthing process to make it happen before it unfolds itself.
Yes, I think that's such a wonderful example. And I think a lot of people see people like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and they think, well, I don't have such a huge mission like that, so I must not have a dharma. How can we know, the size? Like some people's dharma is to affect a lot of people. Some people, it's to be very one-on-one with their family. How can we tell which one is right for us?
I think the dharma is not glorified. To breathe is a dharma, okay? You're effortlessly breathing to keep yourself alive is a dharma that you're doing. Drinking water is your dharma. Eating the right food at the right time is your dharma. Keeping all the moving parts moving in your body is your dharma towards your body. Okay? So there are so many dharmic experiences that you go through on an everyday basis to keep yourself alive, to keep your body healthy, to keep your mind healthy. Okay. When it comes to the next stage, you go to your day job and doing something. It doesn't have to be that you have to be with a Christ mentality to have followers and change the world. You could be a janitor, you could be an office worker or a clerk or something like that. But the way you do your work sincerely, the way you treat everyone with respect, the way you have a smiling attitude about everything makes you feel that what you do has the quality to it, more importantly. And at the end of the day, it makes you feel good about yourself, and people feel good just because of you in their lives itself. So it's a two-way process. Every person influences every person in their lives, no matter what. And slowly being alive, slowly being aware of those things is important. Sometimes we get into these super lofty claims, and we went through this whole cycle that we have to earn a lot of money, and we have to probably have a lot of affluence. We have to have our house in 30s, and we have to retire in our 40s and 50s and comfortably retire on a beach somewhere in 50s or 60s. So these are all social models that were created. Anyone who has the most toys when he dies wins, and that should not be the case. Okay. It's not about the toys when you die. It's about what you do on an everyday basis that gives you that spring in your walk, that makes you feel good about yourself, getting out of your bed and doing something on an everyday basis. So again, going back to the same things, these little tasks that you do every day and you are able to enjoy those are something which is suggestive of more being in Dharma. Sometimes you are stuck not feeling whether what you're doing is right or wrong. And that is the time to probably quiet down, meditate, ask yourself something, and see whether you can amend the way you're thinking or the way you're feeling. And it's actually true sometimes that you don't feel as if you're in your Dharma. You have to make amendments. Just to give you an example, that a few years ago, myself was running a company as an executive director, and I was playing more of an administrative role, managing people and looking at QuickBooks and looking at hiring and firing people and traveling executives, starting up new businesses and things like that. Couple of years I did that, and I was earning good amount of money, and I suddenly realized, what am I doing? And why am I doing this? Am I happy every day? It's not about how much money I'm earning, but am I in my Dharma or not? I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, I'm a healer, I'm a Vedic scholar, and this work I'm doing, even though it is important for someone, there are better people with better skill sets than me who can do that, who would love that, who would enjoy that, not me. So I plainly went to them and said, well, I'm a teacher. I would like to see patients and I would like to teach and write books. And I slowly stepped away from that. So you would realize that every time you're doing something where you feel that you're struggling, you should pause, ponder, and be bold enough and be courageous enough, because there's nothing to lose. Once you feel that you are in your elements, you will find effortless success no matter what you do, in which field you are. It's just a matter of time, how strong of a conviction you have.
Thank you for sharing that story, because for me, I could never imagine you in that role, because you're such a wise sage who I look up to so much that I couldn't imagine you in a more operational role. And also what a travesty to humanity that would be if you weren't sharing all of this wisdom with the world. And to think of all of the people who are working jobs where they're just, performing day-to-day tasks, that the world hasn't yet seen all of the gifts that they have to share.
No, and I think that is when we look at astrological chart, when we look at the doshas, the way you look at those things, there are certain qualities, there are certain skill sets that you innately have, and you should use them properly. So, for example, if there's a Vata person who loves to talk, who are bubbly, who are enterprising, who are energetic, then if they do a sales and marketing job and things like that, it's really good for them because they have the energy, they have the passion, they want to talk about it, they have the twinkle in the eyes and things like that. So that job becomes really easy for them compared to maybe a Kapha person who is a little bit loner, doesn't want to talk, is a little bit more shy and takes time to open up, maybe a little bit lazy and dull. So maybe that job may not be suitable for that person. So the way we look at jobs and our occupations and the titles and the life purpose is also looking at our skill sets. And I think what you're doing and what we are trying to help people understand is where the world is heading right now is all about individual growth, personal growth, and leadership. Is understanding who you are, what your talents are, and how you apply them in the workplace. If someone is good with numbers, someone who is sharp, someone who is analytical, then if they have a pitta frame of mind, they are able to make to that decision-making level rather quickly than someone who is vata. They're more creative and things like that. They may not be good at making decisions. Or someone who is innately gentle and kind and compassionate and loving and happy go easy kind of a person. Those are good people to maybe have an HR like a work or guide a team or to be a leader, to inspire everyone and to be a little bit of a group mentor or something. So those kapha kind of traits, pitta kind of traits, vata kind of traits, you can see that in those people. And if you are applying them in your workplace, then it becomes rather easy. Otherwise, you will struggle to do certain things which could be challenging for you. And I see that in my
100%.
clinical practice all the time. I see that in my clinical practice. If there's a kapha person who is by nature a little bit dull and heavy and tendency for gaining weight and is sitting in his cubicle 10 hours a day and having a heavy commute for an hour going, an hour coming home, then about half of the time in a day is just lost in sitting and doing nothing, and they feel even more dull and stagnant and things. So if you give them something different, then it changes the dynamics. And we do it from the astrology chart. We look at from a doshic traits. We look at from their personality things. We see what the job is affecting their doshic qualities. So, for example, there's a vata person who is doing a lot of traveling job and going in and out of different hotel rooms and time zones and things, even though it's exciting, but it does disrupt that irregular quality of vata. It makes everything, digestion, bowel movements, energy reserves, everything a bit irregular. So I think you have to start asking yourself a question: who you are, what you do, and whether the job is really supporting your innate skill sets within the doshas, maybe within the astrological situations also. But I think it boils down to who you are and how comfortable you feel and what are you willing to do in order to change that, or maybe apply yourselves differently, or make that activity suitable to what you do. And I think that's the wisdom. That's the wisdom that would happen.
Absolutely. And in studying Ayurveda, that's what became the most apparent to me, that oftentimes even our symptoms are telling us what our Dharma is, and to notice to the cues of your body. And, maybe the reason why you're bloated, constipation, gassy, etc., is like, you're just way too vata out of balance. Maybe you're traveling too much, all of these different things. And then that pointing you to, but I'm also creative. I'm also, imaginative. So using those skills rather than operating just from the shadow side of it.
I saw an executive from the Bay Area. I practice here in Santa Cruz in the Silicon Valley. So I saw this very sharp pitta executive, and he said that he's a leader of a team and he's not liked by most of the people in his team, and they're secretly plotting behind his back. And he feels a lot of heartburn and hyperacidity and can't sleep in the night, thinking that someone is trying to hurt him or defame him or things like that. And then we started talking, and we said that you have every morning meeting, and how does it start? And he says that I look at all the work that they have done previous night, and then I tell them who has done what. I grade them, and I tell them you have done this, you have not done this, this is what it is. And I said, I want you to change that completely. Because as a pitta person, if you go into a director role immediately, then people won't accept you as a leader. So if you start the meeting asking them what you have done, what you have accomplished, and how good you feel and things like that, is there something else you would like to add or finish today or something? And then you give your suggestion, I think that would be even well received. Mm-hmm. So if you just amend that one little pitta trait, which is right, instead of doing it in the beginning of the meeting, you do it at the end of the meeting, then it becomes receptive because it was coming from them and you're just acknowledging that. And that completely changed the dynamics. He came back within a month feeling so happy that I didn't realize that even this little change, that I listened to them first before I told them what to do, made a huge difference.
Yeah, I think interdoshic communication is so important because we're so used to communicating with others in the ways that we communicate with ourselves. So he probably sees the world in a very rational, logical way and thought it would be very helpful to grade everyone the first thing in the morning, not realizing that people might take that as they feel like they're in a test and he's the teacher and that he's this authoritative figure and not resonating with that. So I think that's such a beautiful example and something that you dive deeper into of how these doshas are related to the signs of Jyotish Vedic astrology. So can you share with us first, for those who might not be familiar, what is Jyotish? What is Vedic astrology?
Well, Jyotish is an important branch of Vedic literature. Jyoti means light and Isha means divine or godly. So it's shedding a divine light. And the divine light is shed on very basic fundamental principles of astronomy, where there is an astronomical mathematical calculations that has happened with very precise calculations of the zodiac, how the constellations are divided in the tropical zodiac, how the 12 houses and the 12 zodiac signs are divided. That's all very mathematical. But there's a personification of the constellation, personification of the planets, and qualitative assignments that each planet has certain qualities. So you almost consider them as human beings or person and assign them certain qualities. And based upon that, you create almost a transpersonal psychological understanding based upon their chart, that you will have predominant of these qualities versus that qualities based upon the placement of the chart itself. So one part of astrology, which is filled of astronomy, is very mathematical, is very scientific in nature. The other part is, I won't say mythological, but it is something more philosophical in nature. That is more meant for human beings to understand their skill sets, their strength, their weakness, their threats, their opportunities, their good and bad times, and things like that. So it's a wonderful science. When you put them together, you can have some very precise understanding of themselves, their role, their dharma, their state of finances, their relationship, their job, work, tendencies, professions, addictions, limitations, spiritual growth, evolution. It's a fascinating science. And as being an Ayurvedic doctor, when I use it for medical astrology purposes, it becomes even more fascinating, because now I not only know their doshas, I know their ascendant type, their lagna. I also know their sun type. I know their moon type. I even know their planetary types. And I also know where the planets are in the sky right now and how that is influencing them. So it goes to almost like zooming it in further and further. Like there's a big lens you look at and you zoom it 1x, then 2x, and then 3x. So it goes down to a very minute detail. And that is so personal. That is so identical to your own identity. And I think that is why I teach medical astrology around the globe, I would say, to doctors, health professionals, and use it as a tool, because that gives us a lot of information on that person about what are the tendencies for the disease, which are the weak spots in the physiology, which organ could be weaker, what are the times that they should be cautious about, physical traumas, accidents, and emotional trauma that can happen, how they can protect them, what are the ways. And at the end of the day, you have to slowly put them onto a spiritual path, because that's what we are meant for. Okay, we have to guide them toward their spiritual evolution. Whether you do it in the name of doshas, whether you do it in the name of planets, that's the path they all have to be. Okay, and there's an interesting thing before we go there, Sahara. My teacher, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, used to say this, that when you are ignorant, then the planets affect you really strongly. But as you become more and more enlightened, you become immune to the planetary effects. They only affect you when you are under the veil of Maya. When you are ignorant, that's when the intensity of darkness, even the doshas, okay, even the doshas would affect you even more when you are ignorant. When you are into a rajasic, tamasic mode, the doshas will affect you really strongly. As you move towards a sattvic way of living, thinking, behaving, and more of an enlightened living that you are doing, then the edges are taken off. You're still Vata person, but you're not that ungrounded anymore. You're not having those negative traits of doshas affecting you anymore. Same with planets, same with good and bad times. You become slowly immune to those changes and challenges. So it is a lot of room to believe that these sciences were meant for meeting people where they are and slowly leading them where they need to be.
I think that is so important to share because right now, as there is this collective remembering of astrology, people get so fearful. Oh my God, it's Mercury retrograde. Oh my God, this is happening, that's happening. And it's almost like the planets are out against you, or anything bad that happens in your life, you blame it on a planet rather than taking ownership of it. So I think it is so important to note that it does come from the more you see yourself, the less you are affected by externalities.
And I think the fear makes it worse, and the ignorance adds it further. And I wrote a book not long ago, was The Art and Science of Vedic Counseling. And it was meant for even astrologers and yoga teachers and Ayurvedic practitioners, and especially astrologers, where not to incite fear in people in the name of planets. Oh, you are doomed. This planet is in this house, and this is a terrible time for you, or this is really bad, because they are there talking to you because they're already worried and fearful. And you are taking that fear to several notches further, and that is absolutely criminal. Okay, the sciences are meant to uplift people, to give them hope, to give them energy, to give them some way to look at the end of the tunnel, what they could expect, and guide them and give them strength. So I think the lingo and the communication language is so important, especially those who are the custodians of this information.
Absolutely. Yes. And a big thing that people have is they very much identify with their sun sign, their Western astrological sun sign. And when they learn about Vedic, they're very confused because their sun sign tends to be the one before. And also they aren't familiar that much with their ascendant, their moon. I know this episode is good, but so is this sponsor. It's officially fall, Vata season, and you know what that means. Pumpkin spice everything. So if you're a High Self podcast listener, you probably love pumpkin spice lattes, but you probably don't love the sugar, the dairy, etc. that goes into them. Well, I have something just for you. So I've been talking about Organifi products for a really long time, but this season they have their special pumpkin spice gold recipe, which is insane. It has turmeric, ginger, reishi mushroom, lemon balm, turkey tail mushroom, allspice. It literally tastes like a pumpkin spice latte without the sugar, plus all of the superfoods. So you can find this in all of their other incredible products, including their gold chocolate, their green, their red juice, so many wonderful things to keep your immune system really healthy, strong, and vibrant, and also help you with just the stress levels that we're experiencing right now over on their website at Organifi.com using coupon code Sahara for your 20% discount. That's Organifi, ORGANIFI.com with coupon code Sahara, and you can find that link in the show notes. Can you share with us how the sidereal system looks at the stars different than the tropical system?
Yeah, so this is a typical chart that we look at for anybody. Maybe if I have the permission, Sahara, to use your chart.
Yes, we can use my chart. And guys, you can pull up your own chart if you just look up Vedic Astrology. I pulled one up on vedicastrology.us.com, and you can pull it up and follow along. And I also have this video on my YouTube channel. So right now, Dr. Suhas is teaching us how to really look at charts.
So I'm going to hide your date, place, and time of birth because we know that you are forever young. And so we're just going to look at what your rising sign is. So when you enter this planet, the way you look at is the person's date of birth, place of birth, and time of birth. When you were born, time, place, where you were born, and we look at the eastern horizon, which sign was rising. Which sign was rising from the place where you were born. So from Boston, we'll be looking at the sign which was rising on the eastern horizon at that time, because that's where you were born, I guess. So it is the sign which was rising at that time you were born was sign number 8, which is Scorpio. So ascendant means Udit Lagna. So the Lagna that was rising on the eastern horizon that time, because is the rising sun's direction. So 8 becomes a very important juncture from where is the starting point of your life journey. So Scorpio is the starting point, and then you put all the other zodiac sign in an anti-clock manner. So if your rising sign with the sign which was rising was Scorpio, you put it here. Then the next house would go 9, which is Sagittarius. Then the third house would go 10, Capricorn, 11, Aquarius, 12, Pisces, which is the fifth house. So the houses that we talk about, they are counted anti-clockwise, and there are 12 houses and 12 zodiac signs. So this is always considered to be house number 1. And each house has specific attributes to it. First house is all about health, personality, your looks, your bodily features, all of those things would be decided by first house. Second house is money. Third house is sibling. Fourth house is your mother. Fifth house is about education, your children. Sixth house about diseases. 7 about relationship. 8 about diseases and obstacles. 9 about luck, fortune, support of nature. 10 about job, work, profession. 11 about gains and profits and inheritance. And 12 is all about spirituality and things like that. So when you look at a chart, a whole person's life, what they're supposed to do will be there. And these are common areas for everyone. So the 12 houses and their attributes is absolutely common for everyone. So this is the house number 1, which will talk about health for everyone. This is house number 2, which will talk about wealth for everyone. But in your case, Sahara, your health would be under the rulership of sign number 8, which is Scorpio. And that Scorpio is governed by the planet Mars. It's governed by Mars, so you will have more Pitta predominance in your personality. And as we know, Pitta is fire and water together, is that right? So there's a Kapha attribute to that also, but it will be Pitta and Kapha, but Pitta would be slightly nose ahead because Mars is in the 7th house aspecting this, so we will give more Pitta Kapha attribute than Kapha Pitta attribute as such. So there'll be a Pitta predominant, but it will have more Pitta and Kapha quality. So your health would be under the influence of sign Scorpio. Your money, the house of money, is under the influence of sign number 9, which is Jupiter. Okay? Jupiter is the teacher of gods. Jupiter is the teacher of gods. And when we say the planet Jupiter is about teacher, is about spirituality, and that is in the 9th house of Bhagya or luck or fortune. In your case, the way you will earn money will be based upon Jupiterian's task, which will be about teaching, writing, education, helping people from a spiritual counseling perspective, because this is an exalted Jupiter. Okay, and so the money will come because of Jupiter doing those kind of activities. And your 10th house, which is the house of your job, work, and profession, is ruled by Leo, which is Sun. So Sun is also the giver of light, health, wellness, so medicine. So it will be something related with spirituality, and medicine would be a dual karma and dharma that you would be doing. So until and unless you do this together, you would feel kind of lost. If you become a fashion designer, if you suddenly start a business and selling cosmetics or doing something else, you won't feel really comfortable until and unless you find this fusion of Sun and Jupiter. And the day you were born, Sun and Moon are together. So that means you were born on a new moon. So it has to be something shifting and changing every day, because it's about a weak moon or a new moon that you were born. So your energy, your creativity, your energy, your focus, your concentration comes and goes in creative bursts. Okay, so you are not a fit person to do something for 8 to 10 hours on a given day. You have to do something with a focused intention for an hour and be out of it and come back and do something for 30 minutes and then come back and do for an hour. So if you are able to apply this to the way you have created your job or work or your life, then you're doing what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, if I put you behind a cubicle and make you do a mundane job from 9 to 5, you would be very unhappy. And you would make every person in your life unhappy because you're not living in your dharma. So the way we look at the chart, we look at these planets, we look at these areas, and we combine together what this person is supposed to do, how they're supposed to earn money, how they're supposed to interact with their siblings, what is the relationship of this person with their parents, especially mother from the fourth house. If they have their children, what kind of children they will have, and how good will be their relationship with their children. If they will have diseases, what kind of diseases they would have. In your case, the sixth house is ruled by sign number 1, which is Aries. Okay, so Aries is sign which is pertaining to head, and so you have to be cautious related with headaches or heat or inflammation pertaining to something which would create more of a pitta-genic inflammatory imbalances that can accumulate you, and you have to be a little bit more cautious with that area in your body. The seventh house is about relationship, what kind of partnership and how happy, and what are the things that you should be cautious and careful about that. So this chart gives us almost a blueprint of not only who that person is, but what are the skill sets that you need to develop in order to help them better. And we often, back in India, we do it as soon as the child is born, we cast their horoscope. Because not only we know whether this child is having some unique skills or talents and what should I adapt to my parenting skills. If someone is an athlete, maybe I should train them towards sports and more mind-body coordination activities. If they're an artist, shall I put them into dance classes or music lessons or anything like that? Or they are really brilliant and they are intelligent and academic geeky in some way, then I should do some extra coaching and prep to galvanize those talents, what they have. So I think a Jyotish chart is a good way to read your Dharma. And not only Dharma in what you're supposed to do, but Dharma in a way that how you're going to support your Dharma. Let me give you a little example here. So there are specific areas, houses which are pertinent to Dharma in a Jyotish chart. So house number 1 is the house of Dharma, which is your purpose, life purpose, your right duties, the right law. Everyone's ascendant is the house of Dharma. Everyone's second house is the house of Artha, which is the house of money, finances, wealth. Everyone's third house is the house of Kama, is fulfillment of your sensory desires, enjoying luxurious lifestyle, how you can make. Dharma makes you capable of who you are. It makes you capable of earn the money that you want. And that money is spent on the items of luxury that you will fulfill yourself, which is the third stage Kama. And if you're wise enough and if you do it in a balanced way, then it will take you to the stage of moksha where you will still pursue enlightenment without getting distracted with overindulging anything. So the first house is Dharma, second is Artha, third is Kama, fourth is moksha. Then again it starts with fifth house being the house of Dharma one more time. It's the trinal house. And so your Dharma house is fifth house again. And then sixth is Artha, seventh is Kama, eighth is moksha. And then again it starts Dharma here, and then Artha, then Kama, and then moksha. So everybody's chart, there are 3 houses that tells us about the Dharma. In your case, your Dharma is house number 1, which is governed by Scorpio, which is governed by Mars.
And that's everyone's ascendant.
Another
sign.
Dharma
Correct.
house is governed by Jupiter, as I said. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
It's governed by Jupiter, which is Pisces. And another Dharma house is governed by Cancer, which is governed by Moon. So if I put them together with Mars, Jupiter, and Moon, okay? Mars, Jupiter, and Moon. And if I put them together, and out of all the 3 planets, number 1 strongest planet is Jupiter because it is exalted in your chart. So out of all the Dharma houses, Jupiter leads the Dharma house, which is strong. And being in here, it is aspecting your lagna. So Jupiter aspects 5, 7, and 9 houses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it aspects this house here. So Jupiter will aspect this house, which is very, very prominent. And it will aspect 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It will aspect this house also, which is its own sign of Pisces. So Jupiter is the strongest planet. So out of all the Dharma thing, it has to be spiritual counseling, teaching, education, guidance. That's number 1. It will come with the degree of Mars, which is all about clarity. Mars is all about clarity, perception, intuition, cutting through the crap, simplifying the information, making sure that not only you understand, but you help other people understand that. It'll come with the razor sharp intelligence of Mars, still upholding the intuitive quality and the sentimental, emotional quality of Moon. That's what your dharma is. And if you feel that you're doing this exactly what you should be doing, you're a good listener, you're kind, you're compassionate, you have intuitive qualities which comes from Moon, you're perceptive, you're clear, you're sharp, you're articulate. That is also a Martian quality about clearly expressing how it is to be done. And it all comes from the Jupiterian quality. That's how you look at a dharma in anybody's chart. And then you look at all the different areas where the money will come from, where the success will come from, all of these together. So we often look at astrological chart as almost a blueprint of what a person is capable of and what they can do. Okay. So again, this person is a successful author and a very articulate speaker, has an Aquarius rising, which is governed by Saturn. Okay. Aquarius rising is a very powerful sign of Saturn. And Saturn is also a teacher. The quality of Saturn is also a teacher, and Aquarius is the positive sign of Saturn because Capricorn is the negative side of Saturn. Aquarius is a positive sign of Saturn. So you have an Aquarius sign of this person, which makes him innately a teacher. And they have Moon in the 8th house, which is the house of creativity, the house of moksha. And they have a unique combination of Raj Yoga of Jupiter, Sun, Mars, and Mercury all together in the 9th house. As I said, that this is the house of Dharma, this is the house of Dharma, and this is the house of Dharma. Just a reminder one more time. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So this is the house of Dharma. And the house of Dharma is filled with Mercury, which is about speech, mercurial intelligence, communication, expression, literary skills. Mars, with all about clarity, with sharpness, with the drive, desire, ambition. Jupiter, about spirituality, about having a firm belief system, having strength, stability, coming from Sun, which is also a good quality of enlightenment. Okay, a quality of shedding light onto deeper subjects which are often not seen by others. So all of these qualities make this person in their dharma what it should be. If you look at all the other things, it may look a very mediocre chart, but the moment you look at the dharma, that dharma becomes so powerful. And the first half of this life of a person was totally ignorant. It was totally ignorant for the first half of this life. When it came into the elements of Dharma, the second half became filled with purpose. As if every step this person took met with lot of success, lot of followers, lot of supports, lot of colleagues that supported him on his task itself. So the moment we look at this, it gives us almost a lot of clarity about who that person is, what their strengths are, and how they're supposed to function and perform together. And this is very interesting. This Sun and Moon are also very junctioned together. So it's almost a birth of a new moon at a given time. Saturn in the 6th house gives a long life and good health, which is excellent. Okay. And then the 10th house, which is the house of job, work, profession, is ruled by sign number 8, which is Mars, which is governed by Mars. And so Mars can also create medicine or medical background, but which is more surgical in nature, or something pertaining to surgery or clarity or sharpness or something related with that. This is a task which is a misfit for general medicine, but more of a surgical type of medicine, which is more refinement or things like that. Anytime you see Sun or Moon in the 8th house, it is often we see they will be pertaining to medicine itself. And this is a very powerful Raj Yoga with Sun, Jupiter, Mars, and Mercury together, which is very powerful. And then this Venus in the 8th house, which is also the sign of art, okay? Which is also the sign of art, where you will have a person who loves artistic poetry or literary art or things like that will create a lot of intentions and inclination toward that. And if you fuse this all together, you would be able to understand what your purpose is. For this person, the first house denotes teacher or teacher like educator quality. The fifth house, which is ruled by sign number 3, which is Mercury, Gemini, which is about speech, communication, and expression. And the ninth house, which is ruled by Venus, which is Libra, is flooded with very powerful planets. So it's about the art of medicine, the art of health and healing and wellness, coupled with literary skills. And once you identify that, and it may take, as I said, it's not an easy chart because they're all sandwiched between Rahu and Ketu. As you can see that, this is all the first half of the life was all empty. It was a typical mundane life. The second half is filled with a lot of adventure, a lot of success, complete transformation. And when you look at someone's chart, you would be able to actually see what a person is doing and what they are capable of manifesting. And once you compare with the timings that they are going through, then you are able to decode the dharma. So I think Jyotish is an interesting science which looks at the astronomy. These are the astronomical calculations that we are looking at. This is not, I did it. This is something that are set in stone in many ways. Is that right? Because that's when you were born, the place, the time, these were the planets, they were in that zodiac sign. And you cannot choose to give birth to a baby that all the planets are in the best houses. It's impossible, okay? Some of them are really good, some of them are not so good. So even though this person is massively successful, the first half looks pretty mediocre, pretty ordinary at times, okay? So anytime that you try to do, this is what we work with. This is the past life karma that you have born. And then how you pursue these activities and skill sets and talents and qualities that you have, and then have the guts, have the desire to live up to that and have the discipline to stick to that. That's when we often say the rubber of dharma meets the road of action. The rubber of dharma meets the road of action. And when it does that, you're moving and you're cruising along.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So profound, so deep. There's so much that you can see in the chart. So for people who are listening who are maybe like, I don't even know where to start, do you think maybe looking at what your ascendant sign, what your rising sign is, could be good to just see the overall archetype? And could you share with us the different signs and what role they're each related to?
Well, we can talk about it. Like, as I said, that each sign is governed by a planet, and there are out of 12, there are 5 which are in pairs. Okay. So, for example, when you look at Aries and Scorpio, these are 2 signs which are governed by Mars. But Aries is an airy sign compared to Scorpio, which is a watery sign. So even though both of them are governed by Mars, there is an air element predominance with Aries, which will make them a little bit more hot-headed or snappy or grumpy or irritable compared to Scorpio, who would have the drive, who would have the intensity, who would have the water-like quality, which will come to a boil eventually if you're not paying attention to, but it won't happen immediately. So each sign is governed by a specific planet. Like Aries is governed by Mars, which is about sharpness, direction, clarity. Second sign, Taurus, is governed by Venus, which creates a lot of strength and Venusian and artisan qualities and things like that. The third sign, Gemini, which is governed by Mercury, is about intellect, mercurial intelligence, as we talked about, something which is more of a mellow, of a tridoshic quality, but also has innate intelligence. Sign number 4 is governed Cancer by Moon, which makes them intuitive, reflective, sentimental, emotional, sensitive. Sign number 5 is governed Leo by Sun, which makes them really natural leader, a lot of strength in their character, driven, ambitious, spiritual to a greater extent. Sign number 6 is Virgo, which is also governed by Mercury, but it's a different sign than Gemini. So it has a different quality of intelligence and articulation. They are youthful and more younger looking people, and they are having a youthful vibe about themselves. Sign number 7 is Libra, which is governed by Venus, and that's a different artistic quality compared to Taurus. Taurus is more dogmatic and strength and more related with bigger art quality, and then Libra is more about subtle fine arts quality as such. Sign number 8 is Scorpio. It's about discipline, it's about willpower, it's about structure, military, police, personnel, army, or even a spiritual teacher who is very disciplined to create those things. Sign number 9 is Sagittarius, which is another sign of Jupiter, which is fire element. And so it's all about the fire of yoga, I would say. Okay, so spirituality, which creates a degree of heat, and fire, which transforms. They transform themselves. They have the capacity to transform others. Sign number 10 is Capricorn, which is a negative sign of Saturn. But again, it is more related with Saturnian quality of hardship, application, labor, putting efforts and making sure that happens. But 11, which is Aquarius, which is another Saturnian sign, that gives you a spiritual insight in the effort that you put. So you will apply yourselves to maybe a teacher or to a guru or a mentor and then learn few things. And you have to put efforts to get better. And Pisces, which is governed by Jupiter, which is final sign, is a watery sign compared to the fiery sign of Sagittarius. So Pisces is more about reflective, creative ideas and notions, very quiet and sattvic quality of Jupiter itself. So each zodiac sign has specific traits, but not only those traits are equally applicable, they are all having their placements in which houses, their conjunctions, which planet they're sitting with, what are the aspects that they are having, and there are yogas or unions that are created with their aspects, with their placements, with their degrees. So the whole chart has to come to life for us to give us a little purpose. And I do this quite a bit, even when you are trying to hire a person. I like to see them, how easily they fit into this role and responsibilities. Sometimes they have excellent skill sets, which are really good. And I have said no to hire them because their ability to get along with other people in the workplace is not that great. Okay, so they may be good individually when they do something on their own. If you start your business, your venture, you're very organized and things like that, that's perfectly good. But the moment you work for others or you are working in partnership, it would become difficult because you would outperform them and it would create unnecessary stress upon you. There's an excellent book I would recommend. This is a good friend of mine. His name is Bill Levesey, and he wrote a beautiful book called as Beneath a Vedic Sun. Beneath a Vedic Sun, discover your life purpose with Vedic astrology. So it's all about understanding your dharma using Vedic astrology. And he has given numerous examples and tables and charts that might help you understand some of these things. I know this is very complex and what we are trying to dump a lot of information on people at this stage, but once you go to someone and at least learn your chart from a Vedic astrologer, it will come rather easily. The first step is to know more about yourself. And then see if you're interested in learning more about it, whether you can help your family members, your wives, your kids, your friends, and other people in the family. But it's a fascinating science. One thing which I see my personal benefit is when I look at anybody's chart, it actually is a very humbling feeling. It is a very humbling feeling that out of everyone else, you chose me to be here in discussing this with you. Because there's a karmic bond that maybe nature wants me to tell you something here. And the second part is that we are not trying to point out only imperfections or being judgmental about the things that are not good for you, but trying to collectively help you understand that what the karma is here, what your dharma is at this stage. Okay, because at this stage, what you're supposed to do is even more important than a bigger life purpose itself. And what is the right action to do? And if you get the support and you are able to do the right things and wait and watch for the support of nature, I think that's exactly where the wisdom is. And that's where we should be leading people onto their journey of self-realization.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It is so profound. And I remember before I got married, I had you look up my chart with my husband's to see if we were compatible or not, even though I don't know what I would have done if you said no. But I remember you sharing our Saturn returns were at the same time, which is interesting because we are 5 years apart, but our Saturn returns being at the same time. In Western astrology, I think we're always taught that your Saturn return is when you're around 28, 29, around that age, but that's not the case in Vedic astrology. Am I correct?
It is not. Whenever the Saturn is transiting a sign before your moon sign or after your moon sign, that's when we're looking at. So your moon sign is Sagittarius and you're still finishing your Saturn return right now. Moon sign is Sagittarius. When Saturn is transiting in Scorpio, that's when it begins. When it is transiting in Sagittarius, that's when the second 2.5 years Saturn return is. And when it is after your moon sign, it's together 30 months here, which is 2.5 years, 30 months here, which is another 2.5 years, and another 30 months here, which is another 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. So your Saturn return is for like 10 years?
7.5 years each time.
7.5 years. Wow. Amazing.
So in your case, the first one was right when you were born in this time. The second one started in 2014 and will end at 2023. This time literally changed your life completely. 14 to 23, it shaped your identity, who you are. That's what Saturn can do.
Wow.
The next one will come in 2043, which you will be in a different league by that time. Well, as I said, that we have seen that most of the planets for the world and the universe is kind of engulfed between Rahu and Ketu. And what I see in September onward, Rahu is clearing up. And so the clasp of the planets will free up. So it is possible that from September, we'll see a lot of shift and movement. And when the transition happens in January 14th, that's when we would say it would be about 80% back to normal.
By January?
By January 14th, yes.
Oh, and that's my birthday.
Opening up on 21st of September.
Cool. So my birthday present to the world will be a more open world. Yeah, very, very fascinating because I think we can all see astrologically, we are going through a huge shift right now. And what do you think is going to be the biggest change that we see moving out of 2020?
Well, as I say, that this has helped us bridge the humanity. Okay? Adversity has made us closer together. It's the collective ras of Dharma ras, as we call that. The righteousness was affected as a humanity. Okay, degradation of the righteousness, adharma, as we call it, the loss of dharma. So the collective dharma as human being was kind of becoming lost. Global warming, the rat race, weapon race, as we call it, all the nations were getting themselves isolated on different islands and forgetting how we should be living. So there was a lot of chaotic rise, and it was creating a lot of tension and heat, global warming inside and outside the body also. And that is very classical in Ayurveda. It is said that adharma is the first reason for massive pandemics and epidemics. It is called as Janapadodvamsa Vyadhis. So these are mass epidemics and pandemics that can affect humanity due to this. And because of adharma, because of lot of loss of righteousness, it will affect the time. It will create vagaries of time. So you will have prolonged winter or not so long summer or untimely rains and things like that, in which we have been seeing it regularly. It will create degradation of the land where the soil will lose its fertility and will lose its ability to produce good food. Okay, it will change the quality of the water in the universe. So the air, water, land, and time. These are the things that are described classically in Ayurveda. And when we restore the dharma, when we all become a little bit more kind and compassionate and spiritual, and this virus is forcing us to hold hands and learn from each other, from different nations together, is going to be a different universe. And as it happens because of adversity, as the humanity is restored, these elements will improve themselves. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle. It's a subtle cycle of tamas, which is going to give rise to sattva very soon.
So beautifully articulated. Thank you so much for sharing and all of this incredible Vedic wisdom and being such a source of knowledge for the world right now.
Before I forget, I would like to share my new book, Panchakarma. And Panchakarma is your copy is in mail, Sahara. So it's about Ayurvedic art and science of detoxification and rejuvenation. So it's about what Panchakarma is, how it works, and all the three of us have written this together with our clinical experience, myself, Dr. Manisha, and Dr. Manas all together. So I think it's an interesting book about identifying what you can do to help yourself cleanse, detoxify, and rejuvenate. Some of the rituals that you can do, and if you go to a clinic to get Panchakarma done, and how we are applying this ancient technique of Kaya Kalpa for a modern day living. So check it out on Amazon, Panchakarma, the Ayurvedic art and science of detoxification and rejuvenation.
And how can listeners connect with you, schedule a consultation with you, and do Panchakarma with you?
Well, they can always find me on ayurvedichealing.net, ayurvedichealing.net, or they can look me up at drsuhas.com, which is drsuhas.com. They can contact our clinic at 831-462-3776, 831-462-3776. We'll be happy to do a virtual consult, a Skype, a Zoom consult, where we'll walk you through your astrological chart, help you understand your dharma, what is right for you. We'll give you a printout of your astrological chart. You can record the session for you or to re-listen to it one more time. And I think it's a great tool. Everyone, I would say, should have their birth chart casted by an astrologer, and then revisit and talk to them for a few minutes on your birthday to see what this year entails and where your focus should be and what you should be doing during the good and bad times, what are the precautions you should be taking, all of that. I think it's a powerful way of looking at your life on a spectrum scale.
Thank you so much for sharing and for all of the wisdom that you share with us in the world. We are so grateful for you.
Thank you, Sahara. You're a shining bright light. Keep it that way. And I think through your books, through your work, you're touching millions of lives and you're inspiring them, you're motivating them, you're helping them decode their dharma. And that's the first step towards enlightenment.
Thank you. Wow, how incredible is learning about Vedic astrology. It is such a deep science. It's definitely something that I want to learn more and more about, because the more I learn about it, the more it resonates as true. And it's incredible to see really how deep this is and how our souls chose the exact moment that we were born in to support us on this mission of living our purposes. So I'm really excited to further dive into this. Be sure to head over to my YouTube channel as well to watch Dr. Suhas go through this entire presentation on his laptop. He shares his screen as well. And be sure to learn more about your Dharma in my new book, Discover Your Dharma. It is really a guide to help you understand that the obstacles that you have been faced with have been your soul's unique curriculum to guide you on your Dharma and to help you take action. Because I think the biggest thing is feeling confused or feeling like you have a lot of ideas or you have multiple purposes. And I really address each and every one of those issues of, I confronted all of them myself and how to move past it and really live your life, live your expression, live your Vedic astrology and share it out to the world. So it's not something that you keep to yourself. It's not something that you hide in the closet or only do part-time. It's something that you get to live and embody full time. So thank you so much for our guest, Dr. Suhas. Please be sure to check him out. Go visit him in person. He's amazing. Be sure to check out his books. He has so many Ayurvedic books, his trainings. He is such a source of knowledge, such a real, the word guru is someone who passes along the torch and illuminates the path for others. And he so deeply embodies that. So we are so grateful for Dr. Suhas and the work that he has done to bring Ayurveda to the Western world and are so grateful for his time on the podcast today. If you loved this episode, I would love to send you a free gift, which is the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. This is a different book than Eat Feel Fresh, my first book ever, which is not released anywhere. And I am gifting it exclusively to those who leave a review of my podcast in the iTunes store. So all you got to do is head over to iTunes where you may be listening to this podcast and leave a review. Take a screenshot that you've left it and email it over to me at Sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. Again, that's Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com. And I will send you back the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type, which goes all into Ayurveda, doshas, plant-based nutrition, body types, all of the things in a really fun and engaging way. So this is my gift to you for free for supporting the podcast. Every single review I personally read. It really helps the podcast be listened to by more people so we can raise the vibration of the planet together. And I am so grateful to have you on this journey. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Namaste.